So, we're just glad to not be in caves anymore. Caves are weird, you know? Caves are weird. Huh. So, we're not in caves anymore. And we're level 16, trying to get through all this. The Last Stand. This is it, you guys. The Last Stand. It's a hodgepodge of sections, each fighting for control in an uneven battle to dispose the current celestial garrison of inevitables. These are machines. You're going to be fighting robots now. You know, we fought a whole bunch of insect people and miners and caves. Now, no, this is the last stand. This is it, you guys. We're fighting machines now. It doesn't go past machines. That's science. Science, technology in the form of a humanoid. This has to be it. We're fighting machines. These things aren't real. They're machines. And this is it. The last stand. Wow. Illumination. The Celestials who man the garrison know darkness is the ally of evil, so they filled this region, the heart of the garrison, with magical light sources. Unless otherwise specified in the description, every room in this region has a continual flame lantern built into the ceiling at the center of every 10-foot square. This provides complete and total illumination in the room, where the continual flame torches still function, but overall time, since some of the magic fueling the torches failed, has been dispelled, or the lantern has been destroyed. Such abnormalities are described in the various room descriptions. There's a bunch of wards and glyphs. There's all these floating wards and glyphs. I would think of a ward as some vibrating noise, hard to make out, like a spell that once said sort of vibrates in the room very quietly and is difficult to hear. But if you were actually listening, you could have heard the ward that was in the room. As for glyphs, those are written arcane marks which you can search for, I think, with your eyes as opposed to your ears. So we go into the entryway. Some sort of glyph explodes. It was a glyph of warding. I thought those things were opposites, but apparently they can be of each other. And there was an explosion in the entryway of the last stand, fighting inevitables. It's the term for machine humanoids. Inevitables makes sense, actually. It is inevitable. Trap hall, more traps. Divining room. Robots can learn divining. Whoa. Temple. The robots have built in their own temple. Temple living quarters. There's a necromancer. A necromancer is working with the inevitables. You enter into a crypt to fight the necromancer. So we'll be fighting him on his ground, huh? Well, we seem overpowered enough. We're level 16. We can take the necromancer. Throne room. Wish there was good enough treasure to loot, but we're just in it for the XP. Crudely constructed throne made of stone fragments and debris dominate the center of this large dark room. This is a not good throne room. The rest of the room is littered with desecrated corpses and rubble. Clearly many creatures died here. As you enter, a soft moaning reverberates around the room, and a single large shadow form erupts from the throne, its eyes glowing bright red. Boss battle, I think. Oh, you're fighting a shadow. This is Seraxes, the Greater Shadow, medium undead. Well, somehow you slay that shadow. That shadow is destroyed, you get XP. Hidden library. 2 gleaming orbs are suspended from the ceiling, bathing the entire room in a warm glow. This room is filled from the ceiling to floor with books of all which are in good condition without dust. This room has the feeling of being untouched. It is as lonesome as a tomb. It still was a hidden library, and it was warm to the touch. Ruined smithy. Ward staff room. Quarters for the Lord High Marshal Sereneth. Finadar's quarters. Finadar's workshop. First hall of portraits. An entire hallway of portraits. Paintings. Maybe they're magically enchanted. I hope not. Last thing I want to do is walk through a bunch of magically enchanted portraits. Second hall of portraits. Dang. Trapped portrait hall. This time they are magically enchanted portraits, and there's all the different types of painting, magic, traps, by the book, the entire hallway. After that many traps going off, and descriptions and paintings, an entire hallway, this being the third hallway, and finally being the one trapped, you were level 17 from that hallway, and from the boss battle, the shadow you fought earlier, but mostly from the hallway of paintings, you're level 17 now. Because it took a lot to destroy all that art. Because you saw that art as dangerous, you correctly identified it, and you destroyed that entire hallway of paintings. Wow. Guard hall. Doorway room. Hidden supply room. Hell swarm. Warded staff room. Entry room to the Holy Swarm's chambers. Holy Swarm living quarters. Captain of the Holy Swarm's quarters. Queen of the Holy Swarm's quarters. Armory. Containment room. Mortal bar guest pack. Robe room. Testing room 1. Testing room 3. Mortal guards room. Practice hall. Meeting hall. Hidden store room. A hidden store. Guard room. Pit guard room. Living quarters. Ward staff alcove. Menair's quarters. Trap hall. Defensive point. Inevitable garrison. Here we go. Some inevitables have fractured from the remaining garrison, claiming the inevitables and the redeemed control of the central and eastern patrols portions, while the rest of the Celestials control the western parts. The entirety of the inevitables' efforts is directed towards keeping the evils from the regime and from escaping, and they pay little attention to the creatures that have infiltrated. They are unaware of the conditions and unable to help. Instead, they concentrate on keeping the wards charged, their remaining and slaves. Also, most of the inevitables do expend energy hunting down creatures that have taken up residence nearby. Thinking these creatures too weak to really concern them, the strategy cost the lives of a few inevitables who wandered the tunnels alone. So some of the other Celestials are beginning to consider removing these threats. Initially, the Celestial garrison numbered in the hundreds, and the majority of the region and several neighboring regions were made up of quarters of houses, and these troops over the millennia. The garrison has been whittled down to 19 members who occupy a small region in the northern half of the region. The inevitables pay lip service to the following orders of Calera, but usually do as they please do. The Inevitables stand an unfailing watch over the wards, so the other Celestials are limited in their criticism, but as time has gone from the Inevitables have become more and more focused, keeping the wards intact in expense of all and the morality of the creatures the Inevitables ally with, the Inevitables continue their chosen course, oblivious to the displeasure of the other Celestials. Mystified, when anyone speaks against their strategies, the other Celestials now believe they may come to blows with the brethren of things continue in this fashion for another few centuries, for they fear the Inevitables will accept a widget and a wider variety of beings as allies, even if those beings were what the prison was built to contain. Normally, Inevitables called home every few centuries to update their programming, but those in the dungeon have never been recalled. They behave erratically, leading Calaria to fear they may have to be put down violently sometime in the future if nothing can be done to help them. The largest bone of contention between the Inevitables and the other Celestials are the Redeemed. The Inevitables have recruited a few of them more compatible inhabitants of the dungeon in the hopes of reforming them and creating a garrison force of the dungeons. The Leonals and Bralani think this is an awful idea, and the Bralani have done everything short of sabotage to stop the Inevitables' plan. Despite the disagreement, the Inevitables now have a handful of lawful and neutral creatures working in a group they call the Redeemed. The Inevitables see no goals as being above the duty to guard the wands of the dungeon. If given a chance, the Inevitables impress others into the service against their will, including good-aligned creatures they stumble across. They are flabbergasted that anyone would refuse the honor and call of duty of their watchfulness entails. The members of the garrison and the Redeemed tend to move around a lot between going on patrols and recharging wards, so some of the rooms list a percentage chance of finding the inhabitants of that room at home. So it looks like there are some specific Inevitables machines that have names and identities that will be a group boss battle. Maybe Dorsam, bringer of law to chaos, although as zealous as the other Zelakut in pursuing those who escape justice, Dorsam is concerned with educating those transgressors about what they did wrong. He is one of the main proponents of the Redeemed and spends all his time with them. Dorsam defends the Redeemed with the life, refusing to let them come to any harm no matter what their deeds, convinced they can be turned to good. Dubar, master of submission, charged with enforcing agreements of fury or surrender. Dubar was assigned to the garrison to help any agents of evil who surrendered or decided to walk with the path of redemption. Unfortunately, none of the prisoners ever made this choice willingly, so Dubar eventually made the choice for them. Forming the Redeemed, he is the notable who is going the furthest from his original programming, slipping into the methodology of the ends justifying the means. Fashter, the ending, Astral, the last, and Taurus, who seeks without ceasing. I guess these three Inevitables are treated as one and were created together and think of themselves as siblings, though such a concept is tough to apply to constructs. They were assigned to the dungeon to stop any of the prisoners from extending their lives beyond a reasonable length, but the casualties of the garrison suffered and the damage the ward suffered has the efforts of the Marat stained. Now they simply take their turn standing watch with the other Celestials, their true purpose going unfulfilled. Morsak, slayer of the falsehood, while Morsak hunts those who escape justice like a Zelkut, he prefers to hunt liars. He has an uncanny knack for detecting falsehood and views everyone with suspicion, even other garrison members. He is paranoid but generally does not act on his paranoia unless given cause. Of the Zelkuts, he is possibly the most balanced because will fulfill his programming. Despite his paranoid tendencies, he is not likely to trust the PCs under any circumstance unless he knows them for at least 6 months with no sign of treachery. Persol, slayer of unliving, while no Marats like undead, Persol spends more time hunting them than the other Marat in the garrison. He actively hunts the shadows in the southern reaches of the region, usually doing so alone. He is not on watch over the inevitables. He maintains the strongest set of ideals and spends much of his time with other celestials instead of the inevitables, finding the mindset more agreeable. Priesen, adjudicator to the host, master of laws and legal history in the garrison, he helps Tekharas settle disputes among the members in the garrison. Priesen is more a scholar than a warrior. Of all the inevitables, is said anxious to leave the dungeon while his sense of duty keeps him here. He has no interest in glorious death surrounded by the corpse of his enemies. Priesen carries one of the ward slaves when it is not in use. Senar, keeper of the list, historian of the garrison, Senar keeps a list of all those who have fallen in the line of duty. He spends much of his time recording every minute detail of the garrison's daily life. Senar is overtly upbeat and tries hard to convince everyone that the daily grind of keeping the garrison's records is really interesting. He longs for the days of recording great battles and the deeds of heroes, not how many hours each member of the garrison spends changing wards. Of the surviving Celestials, he is most interested in finding the Aldor so that the hidden library may be reached. Oh man, this guy's actually trying to get to that library that we already passed. Well, that's kind of funny. That is kind of funny. Cenarius, follower of